self-care, self-image, self-growth, beauty, business, and books. Check out the free stuff in the description. I'm Gia G. Dixon. Subscribe. New videos every Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. The Defining Decade, Why Your 20s Matter and How to Make the Most of Them Now. So this book was great. It was by Dr. Meg J, PhD, of clinical psychology. She worked with 20-somethings all throughout her career, had a private practice in Virginia, and was a professor in Virginia. And she also was a clinician at Berkeley, California before as a lecturer at UC Berkeley. I listened to the audiobook version and it's narrated by Dr. Meg J herself. I like listening to the audiobook version, especially when the author narrates it, because then you can hear the primary source of how everything is supposed to sound. There is a burst of self-creation in your 20s, she explains, and in our 30s we make defining decisions that stop us changing directions, like settling down, having children. Once you're finished with school, you get settled into a career, and our 20s don't feel that consequential. I personally am feeling it. Like, I'm feeling all the effects of what I did when I was 21, I'm 26 now and 27 in February, which is soon. So the 20s aren't a mystery. We do know how they work. I mean, scientists she's referring to, and 20-year-olds need to know this, but they are not always taught this. They should be taught this. And Eric Solomonson was a blonde-haired German boy born to a dark-haired mother and father he never knew. He was raised Jewish and was teased for it, but also was teased for having a light complexion. So like, he would go to school and people would tease him for one thing. He would go to temple and people would tease him for another. But eventually he went to college, became an artist, took art classes, and sometimes slept under bridges. He was very confused about his identity, and at 25, he returned to Germany and worked as an art teacher. Then he studied, got married, and had a family. He went to be psychoanalyzed by Sigmund Freud's daughter Anna, and went to earn a degree in psychoanalysis. And then he uprooted his family to the United States. He became a famous psychoanalyst and developmental theorist. He taught at Harvard, Yale, and Berkeley before writing several books and eventually winning a Pulitzer Prize. With his feelings of fatherlessness and becoming a self-made man, he changed his name to Erik Erikson, meaning, if you don't know about Nordic names, son, Erikson means son of Eric, so he's the son of himself. He is best known for coining the term identity crisis in 1950. Despite growing up in the 20th century, he lived the life of someone who was very 21st century. He lived in a blended family, like his mom remarried. He questioned his identity. He spent his teens and 20s in search of himself. He felt that this was the norm. So to find your identity is something to not be rushed, and one should have a period of delay for exploration. But then he also says how there's a certain balance to it. If you stay in that state for too long, you never grow up, which is a huge issue. And I see that a lot here in the United States. Like, I'll talk to 45-year-olds who never grew up, and they don't know like basic things about themselves that adults should know, and it's a very problematic situation. It's like, you carry this great job and that's your whole personality, that's your whole life. That's another story. But this part of your life that's in your 20s where you discover your identity. For some, this period is college. For the writer, it was travel and making international friends and family. It is coming into one's own life. Like, you're figuring out your purpose. So Erik Erikson went from identity crisis to winning a Pulitzer, and that's just a small bit of the story. There's so much that happened in between, and he was earning what sociologists call identity capital. And I love this phrase. I love the meaning behind this, and I started using this ever since. It is a repertoire of resources we've assembled over time. These are investments we make in ourselves, things we do long or well enough that become a part of who we are. I have like these weird skills that nobody knows about, and I think that's fun. Some of the stuff that we accrue in identity capital can go in your resume. Others are personal, soft skills, how we speak, how we look. It's currency we use to purchase jobs, relationships, and other wants. So all of these social things that we have in society, and as just people who thrive in being with others and by yourself, how you treat things in your home. Crisis and capital alike can go together like it did for Erikson. More crisis than capital is also bad. So as I mentioned, being delayed in that station of exploration for too long. Erikson makes a point that you need a delicate balance, that young people can eventually become what he calls irrelevant. So people who have identity capital have a clearer sense of self, positive outcomes in their life like high self-esteem, practical and realistic, greater life satisfaction, stronger reasoning, and systems to conformity. So research indicates 20-year-olds under unemployment in as little as 9 months tend to be more depressed than their peers, which makes a lot of sense. Because when you're young and you have no purpose, it feels all the more draining, because that's the time when you kind of discover who you are, and when you have even less than discovered who you are, when you have no reason to get up. I think most people go through that, but especially in your 20s, because when you're in your 20s, you're like constantly trying to be inspired. And if you're not finding any sense of any source for that at all, and you're not being pushed, especially in a community, in a social setting, it's easier to lose yourself. Economists and sociologists agree that 20-something work has inordinate effects on long-term success, specifically work success. About 2/3 of a lifetime, wage growth happens in the early stages of a career. After that, the families and mortgages get in the way of cross-country moves and earning degrees. Salaries rise more slowly. In the US Census, it is seen that salaries peak and plateau in the 40s. By the way, these are my notes that I took while listening to this book. This is just stuff that really stood out to me that I'm going to highlight. Some people think that not working ahead while traveling light is the way to go, but studies show that they never catch up with those who started earlier. That is crazy. And we'll go into this even more, actually. So let me just continue. This makes 40-year-olds feel like they paid an ultimately high price for random 20-something jobs. Midlife is when we realize 20-something choices cannot be undone. You can't think your way through life. The only way to do is to do something. Talent and money matter. I know people are like, it doesn't matter. It's like, it does in the real world. What would you do with your life if you didn't win the lottery? What might you do long enough to support yourself in some form or another in the years to come? The frontal lobe, this is my favorite part of the book, hands down, because it really made me open my eyes to those around me in my life, and different situations of people. So the frontal lobe is the front of the brain, literally, and it helps us with voluntary movement, expressive language, for managing higher level executive functions. Executive functions refer to a collection of cognitive skills, including the capacity to plan, organize, initiate, self-monitor, and control one's response in order to achieve a goal. So according to research, it doesn't fully develop in our 20s. It's like somewhere in the 20s to 30s. It's different for everybody, where it's fully developed. In our 20s, the pleasure-seeking part of our brain is in action, while the forward-seeking frontal lobe is still a work in progress. This means 20-year-old brains are what psychologists call uneven, because it's still developing. Like people who graduate school and went to good colleges still don't know what to start with and what careers they want. They don't understand how they became valedictorians, whom to date, and why. They also worry why those who didn't do well in school are also ahead of them in life. These are different skill sets. Doing well in school, listen up, doing well in school is about having correct answers in clear time limits. Being forward-thinking as an adult is how you can think and act, especially when faced in certain situations. So that's your frontal lobe working for you. The frontal lobe helps you figure out adult dilemmas, which job to take, who to date, when to start a family. These things don't have the right answers. They're not black and white things. So the frontal lobe tells you beyond how to act in uncertain situations, beyond the futile search of black and white solutions. We learn how to act on better shades of gray. That's why when some people in a late developed frontal lobe decide to forge a life in their 30s. So forward thinking doesn't just come with age, it comes with practice and experience. That's why some 22-year-olds are incredibly self-possessed, future-oriented people who know how to face the unknown, while some 24-year-olds' brains think the other way. Action conquers fear. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit at home and think about it. Go out and get busy. That's a quote by Dale Carnegie. And then finally, this quote is by Shinichi Suzuki, the philosopher and musician, and I think he was also a conductor. Knowledge is not skill. Knowledge plus 10,000 times is skill. I hope you like this. Subscribe, like, share this, comment below what you think about this book. If you've read it, what you think. I'd love to know more. And if there's anything that you saw that I didn't, or mentioned that I didn't, please comment below. Share this with someone you think who needs to read this, someone in their 20s or even in their teens and who is on the verge of being in their 20s. Subscribe for a new video, a new book review every single week, and new videos every single Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.